Hello everyone! War Crimes is the new novel written by Christie Golden, and it tells the story of Garrosh and his trial in Pandaria. At the end of the siege, Thrawn nearly took off his head, but Varian stopped him and Taranzu told him that a trial would decide his fate. Keep in mind that this video will contain spoilers and I'll never be able to retell the story as well as it was written. That's why I advise you to get this book, because it's brilliant and in my opinion one of the better books to start reading the novels with. It contains scenes from nearly 8 different novels, but it explains the scenes so well that it stands on its own. It connects the dots of all that happened with Garrosh, with Faramir, with Pandaria, and it even goes beyond that, going into Warlords of Draenor. So once again, get this book. With that out of the way, let the trial of the century begin. All the leaders of the Horde and Alliance are invited to witness his trial at the Temple of the White Tiger. Naturally, to keep things under control, one of the rules is they can't carry any weapons, and a field around the temple will prevent anyone from casting spells. At this point, everyone wants to see blood. They want to see Garrosh pay for what he's done. They want to see his head on a spike. To give him a fair trial, the August Celestials themselves are the jury, Taranzu is the judge, and someone will have to defend Garrosh, while another will have to be the accuser and make it clear that Garrosh should die. The Horde picks Bane to defend Garrosh, and as you might imagine, this is an impossible task for anyone, let alone Bane. His father was killed by Garrosh, and now they're looking at him to defend his killer. But if anyone can make people listen, it's Bane, especially because of that history. The Alliance has no problem with Bane being the defender. They were offered to use a veto if they didn't agree with the choice, but they didn't. As an accuser, the Alliance offered Varian Rin, and the Horde would have none of that. Varian and the Horde have a long history of being enemies. Some still don't trust the changes he went through, so they use their right to veto. They could only do this once though, and this is exactly what the Alliance planned on, since their second choice was Tyrande Whisperwind. Someone who had even less love for Garrosh, for the Horde as a whole, just in case some Horde members still had some sort of affection or doubts towards Garrosh. We as an outside viewer already know that the Horde despises Garrosh, at least as much as the Alliance does, but they don't know that about each other, so the choice was made. Tyrande versus Bane. Tyrande as a priest saw it as her job as bringing enlightenment and understanding. Condemning Garrosh appropriately would eventually bring healing. She didn't see it as a task of hatred, not one about ending life, just one about bringing the facts and letting justice take its course. Bane, as you might imagine, had a bit more trouble with accepting his role as defender. He held a ritual to communicate with his father and find clarity to do the right thing. This was a really emotional scene in the book, and his father asked him one simple question. Answer this and you will know what to do. If it grieves you that I was slain by treachery, can you then do anything but strive for perfect truth and integrity, even, perhaps especially, when it does not come easily? Can you not do your utmost to honor this role that has been given to you? Truth be told, Bane already knew deep down in his heart what the honorable choice was, and he just had to have this confirmation. As his father bestowed this wisdom on him, he had to leave Bane again, because Cairn is no longer amongst the living, and Bane had so many more questions for his father, tears down his face, but his father just couldn't stay. Now it wouldn't be a trial on Azeroth if there wasn't a little twist, and to help each make their case and to not just rely on witness testimonies, the Bronze Dragonflight offers to show visions from the past. Kairos Dormu has tinkered with his vision of time, the one that we actually helped him create, and he's now able to control it in such a way that he can decide which moments to show. Kairos is helping Bane with this, while Chromie is helping Tyrande, and both of them are offered their knowledge and wisdom of the time waves to show specific moments and build their case around it. When they drag Garrosh to court, Taranzu reads to him the long list of crimes that they're charging him with. You are charged for all acts committed in your name or by those with whom you've allied. Genocide, murder, forcible transfer of population, enforced disappearance of individuals, enslavement, the abduction of children, torture, the killing of prisoners, forced pregnancy, and the wanton destruction of cities, towns and villages not justified by military or civilian necessity. What say you to these charges, Garrosh Hellscream? Garrosh smiled, beginning to slowly applaud, although the chains about his wrist hampered the gesture. The show has barely commenced, he responded sneering, and already I give it a standing ovation. This promises to be more entertaining than the Dark Moon Fair. I will not say that I am guilty, for that denotes shame, nor will I protest innocence, for I claim no such. Let the comedy begin. This of course creates a massive burst of outrage and they had to remove several out of the courthouse to restore order. Garrosh sees this as entertainment, a joke of a trial since the outcome is almost certain. Now I'm not going to cover each individual witness that they summon, that would simply take too much time. I got the general impression from the trial like I was reading a Horde versus Alliance discussion on the forums. The Horde did this, the Alliance did that, Dalaran, Faramore, Vol'jin, Varian, all those discussions that have been had, but there was one testimony that surprised me, but was also really beautiful. One of the crimes that they're charging Garrosh with is forced pregnancy, and the first time that I heard this, I was like, what? The only case that I can remember is with Alexstrasza during the first Horde invasion. This happened before Garrosh ever set foot on Azeroth, but since he allied himself with the Dragonmaw clan, and they were responsible for this, they're charging Garrosh with this crime. They even enslaved proto-drakes during his ruling, so the blame falls on his shoulders. For this, Alexstrasza the Lifebinder herself takes the stand and she tells the heart-wrenching story as to how the orcs forced her to lay more eggs and breed dragons that they will use against the Alliance. How they picked up one of her children, the children of the Lifebinder, destroyed the egg in front of her eyes and smeared her face with the remains. Bane keeps his questions short and he asked Alexstrasza how she currently feels about the orcs that imprisoned her and did these terrible things. I have no quarrel with any race on Azeroth, she replied. I am the Lifebinder, and even though most of my powers as aspect have disappeared, my heart is still the same. I love them. Bane says what everybody's thinking. You love them? These orcs that did such terrible things to you? Few beings are truly evil, and even they are not necessarily beyond redemption. Change is inherent in life. As long as something lives, it can grow. It can seek the light or the darkness. It is only when it chooses the darkness so completely that life itself is endangered that I would say there is no hope. Bane then asks if the same orcs who did this to her would ask for forgiveness, what would she do? And Alexstrasza looks directly at Thrall with a big smile and says that she would forgive them, of course. Such is the beauty of the Lifebinder and this theme of growing, of change, of choices. This is what the story truly is about. Not just for Garrosh, but for all of them who have changed throughout the years. Varian has changed, Thrall has changed, Jaina has changed, Moira, Anduin. All these characters have changed over the years. They've grown, they've made choices. And taking someone's life removes any possibility for that change. Besides the trial itself, there are a couple of side stories going on. First we have the long-awaited reunion of the Windrunner sisters. Verissa Windrunner lost her husband Ronan during the bombing of Faramore, and Sylvanas never had any love for Garrosh. They both fear that this trial could somehow end up with Garrosh keeping his head, so Verissa sends her sister a message together with the necklace given to them by their oldest sister. They meet up and they come up with a plan to make certain that Garrosh does not survive this trial. They plan to poison his food, but besides that, they also grow closer again. Sylvanas is able to feel things that she hasn't felt in years, and for once she acknowledges how lonely she's been. Verissa tells Sylvanas that after the deed is done, she wants to join her in the Undercity, that she has nothing left to live for, and that the world of darkness, Sylvanas' world, is much more appealing now. Sylvanas is cautious at first about this new relation. She wants to know why her sister has changed so much, and Verissa breaks down not in anger, not in fear, not in hatred. She breaks down in tears with the simple line, "He took my Ronan." Sylvanas holds her sister close as her grief and pain simply pours out of her, and they make their plans to assassinate Garrosh. Warlord Zayla, another side story, managed to survive the siege of Orgrimmar, and she, together with the remainder of the Dragonmaw clan, moved to Grim Batol, the same location where they once upon a time held Queen Alexstrasza. She's still extremely loyal to Garrosh, and she received a message from her friend that she should gather more allies and get ready to break Garrosh out of prison. First she recruits the sharpshooter Shokia, the same female orc that was part of the Horde team on Pandaria. Next they collect the mage Talon Songweaver, who's the same blood elf that betrayed Jaina at Faramore, and the Horde players rescued him during the Faramore destroyed scenario. The final name for the crew is the Goblin Hedomiser, who's been held captive by the Alliance at Westguard Keep. They need him for his Zeppelin, and at the same time they recruit a bunch of pirates so they have enough forces to storm the Temple of the White Tiger. There are more side stories going on, but the final one that really captured me was the one between Anduin and Garrosh. Bane tried to convince Garrosh to open his mouth and say something during the trial so he could use him as a witness and possibly strengthen his case. Garrosh kept his mouth shut though and only agreed to talk to one single person. Prince Anduin Rin. Anduin didn't immediately say yes. The memory of getting crushed by Garrosh and the Divine Bell was still fresh in his memory, and even though they healed him, his bones still ache from time to time. Despite that, he decides to go through with it because someone in trouble has asked to speak with him. How could he say no and still stand in the light? He saw it as his duty as a priest, and he simply couldn't deny such a request. During one of the conversations, they talked about someone's nature. Garrosh asked Anduin if the light chose him or if Anduin chose the light, and could he choose to deny the light. Anduin asked why he would possibly want to do that, to which Garrosh said that once upon a time, a golden-haired beloved human prince also turned his back on the light. Outraged, Anduin said, "I'm not Arvis." Garrosh smiled oddly and said, "No, you are not. But maybe I am." Can one turn away from his true nature? Can he change? And is there such a thing as a set-in-stone destiny? This is what this conversation comes down to. Once again, that returning theme of change, and somehow, someway, throughout the story, I started to believe that Garrosh could change if given the chance. Near the end of the trial, Tyrande and Bane are both given the opportunity to make their final statement. Tyrande brought with her 9 different stones, each collected from a location where Garrosh did terrible things. All the things he was being charged with. For example, 1 stone came from Fedamore, 1 stone came from Asherville, another from Ajara, and 1 taken from the arena of Orgrimmar. Tiny little drops of blood on it, the location where Garrosh killed Cairn. With each stone, Tyrande relived the story behind it, and she told the jury that Garrosh will never change. All there is to him is greed and plotting and pride. As long as he breathes, he will butcher. End him now. Bane stepped up and he took the rock taken from Orgrimmar and he pulverized it into dust, claiming that this trial, these stones, Tyrande's presentation, all of it didn't matter. In the end, we all turned to dust, just like this rock. But what does matter is what we choose to do with our time. People change, we've seen this time and time again, and the only justice would not be to end the possibility of change, it would be to give life a chance, even someone like Garrosh Hellscream. With those final statements, the Celestials decided to end court and later speak their verdict. Meanwhile, Verissa poisoned the food that would be Garrosh's last meal, but on her way back she ran into Anduin, who was about to talk to Garrosh. Anduin reminded her of her sons, and the memory of her 2 boys melted a little bit of the ice surrounding her heart. She saw running into Anduin as a sign from the light, and she told him that the food was poisoned and the choice was in his hands. Let Garrosh die, or warn him before he eats. This news reached Sylvanas, while Verissa spent time with her kids, and Sylvanas was devastated. She finally allowed herself to feel again for her sister, had opened up her heart, and envisioned a future where she wouldn't be that lonely, and all of that was taken away from her. She raced through the land, killing anything in sight, screaming her Banshee scream, and she let it all out. Sylvanas Windrunner, Banshee Queen, was so close to changing, but now the door is shut. Her heart is cold again, and for those who wondered what would happen during a Windrunner reunion, now we know. Sylvanas let her sister in, but her sister let her down, and now I can't imagine anything in the world possible of pushing Sylvanas away from her cold and dark path. If there was ever any hope that her older sister would change Sylvanas, I think that's now destroyed. Now, by giving Anduin this information, Garrosh's fate is now in Anduin's hands. In the final conversation, Garrosh was really agitated since he was facing his own execution. He was trying to get Anduin mad, push him off that holy and righteous pedestal that all the arrogant Alliance members tried to pretend they're on. And he takes it so far that he says, "You listen to me, boy. I hope you live to be king. Because whether or not I'm here to see it, the day you take the throne, the orcs will celebrate. And we will come for Stormwind, do you hear me? We will race through your streets and kill your people. We will place your soft little peace-craving body on a pike and burn your city down around your still wet ears. And in whatever afterlife your precious light grants you, your parents will wish Queen Tiffin had miscarried." This infuriated Anduin, and he wanted nothing more than to use the light and end Garrosh. But when his food was carried in, Anduin made the only decision he could. He reached for the plate, smacked it on the floor, and Garrosh grabbed his arm. He twisted it and caused agonizing pain, but the holy light filled Anduin, and he told Garrosh that the food was poisoned. A rat, the only companion in that cage, took a bite from the food, and he died in front of their eyes. Garrosh let Anduin go, and Anduin stepped away. He had made his peace with Garrosh, and now Garrosh would have to make peace with himself. As a final request, Anduin asked the guards if they could remove the shackles around Garrosh's legs, so he could at least face his verdict as the warrior that he was. This would turn out to be a huge mistake. Garrosh is given the opportunity to say his final words before they speak his verdict. He speaks about how Tyrande made a strong case against him, how Bane, despite his own feelings, tried not to plead his innocence, but make people listen and understand. Finally, he speaks to Anduin, who should have every reason to want to see Garrosh dead, but instead he talked about the light and about how he believes people could change. He took a deep breath and seemed to be gathering his thoughts. Anduin leaned forward, not wanting to hope, but hoping wildly, beautifully anyways. And now, here at this moment, when I am free to speak my mind and heart, I tell you true, I regret. His laughter rang through the arena. Nothing! I would destroy 1,000 Feramors if it would bring the Alliance to his knees. I would hunt down every night elf whelp that beats on the face of this world and silence their mewling forever. I would banish every troll, every tauren, every simpering blood elf and greedy goblin and shambling walking corpse if it were within my power. And it almost was. Garrosh has no regrets, and while he's making this speech, some notice that Chromie is nowhere to be found, while Kairos Dormu is tinkering with the vision of time. Anduin moves to the prison area to ask the guard if they'd seen Chromie, and there Refion's betrayal becomes clear. He, together with his henchmen, had knocked out the guards, locked Chromie away, and he explained to Anduin that this was all for the greater good of Azeroth. One day Anduin might understand, and on that day they would face a terrible enemy, perhaps even as brothers. Refion then knocks Anduin out, while in the courtroom Kairos Dormu uses his device to create a portal for both him and Garrosh to escape, while copies from our heroes from different time waves show up to fight. Don't forget about Zayla and her Dragonflight. They show up just at the right time with their pirates, the Dragonmaw, dragons from the Infinite Dragonflight. Talon Songweaver is dropping miniature mana bombs all over the place. In short, all hell broke loose. The field that prevented them from casting magic is disturbed by the Infinite Dragonflight, and a small war erupts around the temple. Bane faces off against the Bane that decided to end Garrosh after he killed his father. Kalik faces off against the Kalik that was unable to stop Jaina from flooding Orgrimmar, and this caused a war that eradicated all of the blue Dragonflights. Goel had to fight a thrall who never escaped Durnhold, and Anduin saw a copy of himself that lost his father and was forced to be the king. Refion had once said that he feared that Anduin was too soft to lead his kingdom, and this Anduin cowered in fear with all the fighting around him. Our Anduin grabbed Fearbreaker from the other Anduin, and he used it to fight off a fake Vol'jin. Vol'jin was about to kill him, but the other Anduin jumped up and took the blade instead. At that moment, Chromie showed up and she tossed the fake Vol'jin away, but it was too late for the other Anduin. Chromie couldn't stick around though, since she had to do everything in her power to stabilize the rifts created by Kairos. She did tell Anduin that he had to accept his other form in order to make his grip on our reality falter. It was easy for Anduin to do this, but the others were facing against crazy copies of themselves. Copies that showed that the choices we make define who we are, that everyone could turn into a Garrosh or could become the exact opposite. Our heroes have gone through a lifetime of changes with choices along the path, and now they had to accept these counterparts for what they were. Bane, while he was fighting, noticed that the Celestials, they just sat there, they did nothing, and this angered him. At that moment, the White Tiger shouted out, "Remember the Shah. The more you try to fight it, the stronger it becomes." Their wisdom flowed into Bane and the others, and they realized what they had to do. One by one, they started to accept the wisdom of the Celestials. They talked to their counterparts, and they dealt with them. They dealt with the possibility that they too could have fallen as far as Garrosh had fallen. These counterparts were not the only enemy though, since Warlord Zayla was still around to make sure that Garrosh had made his escape, and she fought with Varian. A fireball shot by Jaina quickly ended their fight, but in response Jaina was shot by Shokia. His blood spilled out of Jaina's body, and Varian could have gone after Zayla and end her once and for all, but naturally he decided to go for Jaina. This gave Zayla the chance to check out the temple, and she saw that Garrosh had made a clean escape. She called her Dragonmaw, told them to retreat, and she left the pirates to their fate. Varian, wounded and hurt, carried Jaina to Goel. And when Goel saw her limp body, his eyes went big. He, together with Draka, Anduin, Tyrande, Velen, they all tried to heal Jaina's wounds, but all hope seemed to be lost. Varian told Anduin to come away, since there's nothing left that he could do, but Anduin couldn't give up hope.
Hope is eternal. We must never give in to despair.
And so the student remembers the lessons of my temple. Hope is what you have when all other things have failed you. Where there is hope, you make room for healing, for all things that are possible, and some that are not. The Red Crane of Hope used his powers to heal all of them, and Jaina's body was made whole. With the battle done and the knowledge that Garrosh had escaped, they still asked the Celestials what their verdict would have been. The Celestials told them that they already knew the answer from the very start. They would have given Garrosh life. So why this trial in the first place? Because not only Garrosh was on trial, all of them were judged and sentenced, since all of them had to understand. This entire story was to heal old wounds, bring understanding, and acknowledge the events that happened. We as an outsider, we know all these events, but these characters didn't, and they had to make choices. Jaina, for example, chose to let go of her hatred. Varisa chose to embrace the future with her kids. And when they were fighting their copies, they all had to embrace the wisdom of the Celestials and understand that all of them had a potential Garrosh inside. That was the meaning behind this trial, which allowed them to go into the world with a cleansed soul, with wisdom, and do what they must. Even though Goel had long ago stepped away from a position of power, all faces eventually turned towards him. Humbly, Goel, son of Duratan and Draka, spoke for them all. We will find Garrosh. And so ends War Crimes, and all of this leads us into the next expansion, Warlords of Draenor. Like I speculated in my time travel videos, it was Garrosh Dormu together with Rephion that set these events in motion. The true question still remains, why give Garrosh this golden ticket? In game and from this book, we learned that certain members of the Bronze Dragonflight, they're not happy about losing their powers, and they would rather manipulate events to return to their former glory. This is Garrosh Dormu's motivation, which could very well lead into the creation of the Infinite Dragonflight. But what's Rephion's motivation? We know that his one goal is to protect and save Azeroth. He even told Anduin about this, but what's the gain from creating this Iron Horde? Does he expect the Iron Horde to conquer our planet and be a stronger defense? I highly doubt it, since he tells Anduin that he hopes to stand together with him against this foe. So does he perhaps want to add more Orcish and Draenei troops to the Alliance and the Horde? Or is there more manipulation going on? Remember that Garrosh Dormu and some of the Bronze Dragonflight, they can see the possibilities of the time waves, they can browse it, they have knowledge. Is Rephion trying to mold a certain future, or is he doing something else?
What if it were possible to shape and mold time as you would a ball of clay? What possibilities await? What new worlds could we create?
Time will tell what the next expansion might bring, and I can't wait to find out. Before I end this video, I want to give a couple of lore bits that didn't flow into my story, but they are interesting to know. Agra is pregnant with her second child, just as we've seen in the water vision during the Cataclysm. This was a nice touch in my opinion. It's nice that this prophecy is fulfilled, and having her pregnant makes the decision of leaving her behind during Warlords a bit more understandable. At least in my opinion. Just like the dragons, all the Celestials have the ability to change their shape and form. We already seen this with the Jade Serpent turning into a young Pandaran cub, but this time they had the tiger in human form, the Red Crane as a blood elf, and Yao Zhao as a tauren. G Firepaw and Isa Cloudsinger are currently enjoying their time together with their relation. They're still representatives for the Horde and Alliance. It doesn't look like G has actually left the Horde after the events of the siege, so time will tell where that relation might go. Some of the Kor'kron that serves Garrosh left his service after the events of the novel Wolfheart. During that book, Garrosh had captured a couple of Magnetar from Northrend and he held them under control by threatening their children. Despite these massive troops, they still lost the war because Varian embraced his wolf side and the Worgen joined the Alliance forces. Garrosh had promised the parents that he would release their children if they fought for him, and he held his word, only he released the children not in Northrend, but in Azshara. Azshara has hostile Naga, and these children, they had no way of defending themselves, and this act was such an act of cruelty and dishonor that several of the Kor'kron left his service. There was a small line about Jaina that she's been negotiating with Lor'themar, and I hope that this was about the imprisoned Sun Reavers in Dalaran. They didn't go into details, but Vol'jin did send Jaina a note stating that he doesn't hold Dalaran against her. The ghost of Garrosh has done enough damage, and Vol'jin won't hold a grudge. This note pushed Jaina into letting go of her hatred, and brought her and Kayla closer together, so my speculation is that either the Sun Reavers are already released, or they're going to be released. If you want to know more details about the Jaina Kalek story and more details in general, get this book. I simply can't explain all the little details in a single video, but I do hope that you've got a better understanding of the story and how we're going to go into the next expansion. I truly loved reading this book. There are always a couple of things that are not that great, like the whole concept of a trial or Dalaran, not going into details about that, but overall, this book in my opinion is great. That's just my opinion though, so do with it what you want. For now, I'm going to end this video since I've been going on for long enough. Thank you very much for watching everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos. And until next time guys, see ya!